I'm Emilio, director, and I'm also going to be teaching you some choreograph. Right here, we have a single sword. It's well, it's a single sword. Duh. It's a shorter blade. It's a short sword, and it's usually used for quick movements and attacks. So I'm going to show you a few simple ones. If a guy comes in, or actually, if you just have an average guy, here you just go.
Dead.
Yes, dead.
Dun, 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 dun,
They'd
dun.
probably be dead after the shoulder shot, because you'd be cutting their jugular. You come across and cut under their arm, cutting another artery, leg artery. 4 shots, and they'd probably be dead after the first one. Short sword. What?
Now if a guy comes running at you.
Now a guy comes running at me.
Like this.
You
What?
have the, when a guy comes running at you, you block, and you just go right through the stomach. It usually goes right.
Like so.
Now, a lot of people don't know the difference between fencing and sword fighting. Fencing is a form of dueling, where if I get the long sword, this still isn't a fencing sword. Fencing swords are about 3.5 to 4.5 feet long. Well, originally they were, and they were originally made for dueling until they turned it into a sport. In fencing, you have to have a specific stance, one arm back for balance, and one arm forward for blocking. The guy comes in, you block, strike, strike. It's a very tight movements. They're very tight. You all are aimed at one specific part of the body, which is usually the chest. Never go for the head usually. You wouldn't usually unless you were a cheater back then. And you'd always just go move, cut, or move, stab. With sword fighting, that came around much before, it was actually very violent. You had your sword, and you just swung down, wham, 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 wham. You just go in to kill. You go in to destroy. And it was all based on strength and not your agility. Well, then again, yes, sword fighting, sword combat I should say, because they're both forms of sword fighting. Sword combat was made for being strong and aggressive and agile, while dueling was all about your intelligence and your precision. This is a long sword. It's about 3 feet long, 3.5 feet long. This is the usual length for a long sword. This is a relatively long short sword. Short swords are usually 2.5 feet. This is a little over 2.5 feet, but it still counts as a short sword. This is a short long sword. It's a shorter version of the long sword. The long sword would usually be slightly longer to about here. This you would use for very broad attacks, blocking, and for strikes across the chest. Now, those are the basic moves with the sword. Thank you.